In the quietest corners of America's national parks, the land keeps secrets that even the rangers can't explain. There are trails where sound bends, valleys that hum at dusk, lakes that refuse reflection, and voices that echo long after the people are gone. For decades, field logs and incident reports have quietly documented events that never made it to public maps entries, labeled only with words like unverified, restricted, or anomalous behavior observed. These aren't stories passed around campfires. They are written accounts, signed and dated, sealed in the archives of the U.S. Park Service. Across Yosemite, Denali, Yellowstone, and the Smoky Mountains, a pattern has begun to emerge, something unseen, something that pulls people off the trail and erases the evidence after. The forests know, the ground remembers, and what hides between them has been listening far longer than we have been looking. Join us as we begin to listen back, the lake that refused reflection. In the high country of Rocky Mountain National Park, at nearly 11,000 feet above sea level, lies a small alpine basin rarely visited, even by seasoned rangers. The trail to it branches from an unmarked service road near the Mummy Range, climbing above the timberline where the air grows thin and the wind moves without echo. The lake there has no official name, though early surveyors labeled it Mirror Lake on internal maps. The irony appeared later because Mirror Lake is the only body of water in the park that reflects nothing. The first official record dates to September 1979, written by Ranger Gordon Lyle, who'd been tasked with verifying the seasonal snowmelt depth. His field note reads, "Surface black, no reflection even under full Sunday. Camera failed to register glare. When he leaned over the water, he saw only darkness, no sky, no shape of himself, not even the silhouette of his measuring pole. It's like looking into a hole," he told his supervisor. The photograph he submitted shows an oval void surrounded by boulders. The sky and peaks around it appear sharp and bright, but the water is featureless, as though the negative had been cut out. Subsequent visitors confirm the same effect. The water was perfectly clear when sampled cold, pure, slightly mineralized but optically dead. Even under bright light, it absorbed color instead of returning it. "It's the opposite of a mirror," one technician wrote in 1982. "You expect a reflection, but the light never comes back." The phenomenon persisted across decades. In 1988, geologists lowered a weighted line into the lake to measure depth. It descended beyond the 30-meter limit of the reel without touching bottom. When retrieved, the rope's final 20 feet were warm to the touch. "Impossible for glacial runoff at this altitude," the report noted. Infrared thermography later showed faint heat signatures spreading outward from the center, invisible to the naked eye. In 1999, a hydrology team returned with sonar. The equipment functioned normally elsewhere, but failed here, each ping returning a blank return, as if the signal had been swallowed. "No echo received," the technician wrote. "Acoustic absorption exceeds measurable range." Divers from Estes Park, Search and Rescue, volunteered to descend manually. 2 entered the water on August 15 under controlled supervision. Both resurfaced less than 2 minutes later, shaken but uninjured. One removed his mask and said, "There's no up or down in there. The light doesn't know where to go." Rangers logged repeated accounts from hikers, claiming that the lake appeared to pull light inward. At midday, its surface remained darker than the surrounding shadow, even in clear weather. On moonlit nights, it became an oval of absolute black. Animals avoided it. Elk tracks stopped 10 yards short of the shoreline. By 2007, the phenomenon was officially designated an optical anomaly site and placed under restricted access for ecological restoration. Yet rangers continued to monitor it quietly. In September 2011, infrared cameras positioned along the ridge captured brief pulses of light flashes, lasting less than a second, rising from the lake's center like silent lightning. The event repeated 3 nights in a row, each exactly 2 minutes apart. A ranger named Leah Morgan was present during the second occurrence. Her report is precise: no sound, no ripples. The water glowed from beneath, white-blue, expanding outward like breath. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, then black again, Later analysis showed no change in temperature or chemical composition, but the images from the cameras carried faint static interference, and each file ended at the same timestamp, 0 hours 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Local legends around Estes Park long predate the scientific reports. Early homesteaders in the 1,890 seconds told stories of a blind pond where stars disappeared. Some claimed that throwing a stone into it produced no splash, only silence. A few said they saw shapes beneath the surface that weren't reflections but movements, as if something beneath was mimicking the surface too closely. The stories faded over generations, but the park logs remain steady, written by professionals who don't use words like haunting or cursed, only reflective failure, persistent. Attempts to photograph the lake have all failed in similar ways. Cameras record the surrounding landscape perfectly, yet the water appears digitally erased, pure black, even in daylight exposure. A drone survey in 2019 recorded 6 minutes of footage before freezing mid-flight. The last frame shows the drone's own shadow crossing the ridge, but not across the water. Where its reflection should be, there is nothing. Theories vary. Some scientists propose that microbubbles within the lake's mineral layer absorb incoming light. Others argue for extreme stratification of temperature, creating a lensing illusion. But none explain the heat readings or why the same effect persists through snowmelt, drought, and seasonal variation. In 2021, during a short maintenance hike, Ranger Morgan returned to the site alone. Her handheld audio recorder, later recovered from her vehicle, captured 23 minutes of ambient wind, followed by a low hum. At 1847, she whispered, "It's darker today." The hum grew louder, steady, vibrating the mic casing. 2 minutes and 3 seconds later, the recording ended mid-word. She returned to base that evening unharmed, but her log entry was brief. "Do not approach edge after sunset." That same year, the park installed a motion-triggered camera on the western ridge. For the first week, it captured normal conditions, still water, drifting mist. On the 8th night, at 1958, the camera activated automatically. The lake surface appeared faintly luminous, then split down the center with a thin line of pale light. The image lasted exactly 123 seconds before returning to black. The next frame showed normal terrain again, but the camera's internal clock had reset to 0 hours. When engineers examined the file, they discovered something stranger. The data contained duplicate timestamps, repeating every 2-3, as if the recording itself were looping time. Today, Mirror Lake remains closed to the public under the classification unstable terrain. Rangers conduct inspections twice yearly, but rarely linger long. No animals drink from it. No ice forms in winter, even when surrounding ponds freeze solid. Its color never changes. Visitors who've glimpsed it from distant ridges describe it as unnerving water, so still it looks like a hole cut into the earth. Some say that when the wind moves across it, the sound distorts, bending around the void as though refusing to touch the surface. Others mention a sensation of vertigo, as if the world tilts slightly toward the lake. The latest park report, dated September 2024, ends in neutral language. No reflective return detected. Subsurface activity stable. Duration of luminous event, 0 hours, 2 minutes and 3 seconds. No further action required. But among staff, the whispers continue. They say the lake still holds everything that has ever looked into it, the sky, the mountains, and the faces of those who leaned too close, and that it keeps them, one by one, until it remembers how to reflect them back. The station that answered back, deep in Denali National Park, where the mountains fold into themselves and radio contact fades hours before sunset, there stands a decommissioned ranger station known on old maps as Outpost 31B. It was built in 1962 at the edge of a glacial moraine, one of many relay points that linked the early Alaskan parks before satellite service. The structure is still there, though snow now covers half the roof and wind moves through its hollow antenna tower like breath through a flute. It has been empty for decades. Officially, it was retired after repeated communications inconsistencies. The earliest report of trouble dates to March 1974. A ranger team stationed 50 miles south picked up a distress transmission on the old park emergency band. The voice on the line identified itself as Ranger Peter Hall, Outpost 31B, and gave coordinates requesting medical evacuation. The call was logged at 2:07 a.m., but Hall had died 2 winters earlier, caught in an avalanche near the Toklat River. Rangers assumed it was interference, perhaps an unlicensed transmitter or a hoax. Yet when they replayed the tape, the message contained Hall's known call sign and an exact code phrase used only within that outpost. Static obscured much of the audio, but one line was clear: still here, still waiting. The following month, more signals followed, each faint, distorted, but consistent in phrasing and tone. The same call sign, the same timestamp, always at night, always beginning with the sound of wind over a microphone. The messages would continue for exactly 2 minutes and 3 seconds before cutting off abruptly. In June 1975, an investigation team traveled to Outpost 31B to check for illegal transmitters. The cabin was intact but dark. The generator was cold, cables buried in ice. Yet the old radio panel, unplugged, still emitted a weak hum. When a technician placed his hand on the metal, he felt it vibrate in a slow, steady rhythm, matching the Morse interval for SOS. No power was connected. The equipment was dismantled and flown out for analysis. Engineers later reported residual voltage in components long since oxidized. Capacitors appear charged. One wrote, "No source identified." The radio was stored in Anchorage for further study. 3 days later, without being powered, it transmitted again. Technicians monitoring the park's emergency frequency recorded a brief burst of static, followed by a woman's voice saying, 31B receiving. The accent matched Ranger Laura Finch, missing since 1969, when her patrol plane vanished near Polychrome Pass. The transmission lasted precisely 2 minutes, repeating her call sign 3 times before fading into white noise. Finch's voice has never been duplicated or impersonated convincingly by anyone since. Throughout the 1,980 seconds, the pattern continued sporadically. Once every few years, a short burst of radio static would emerge from the mountains around Denali, always on the same frequency, always around 2 a.m. Most contained fragments of recorded ranger transmissions, log entries, weather updates or distress calls, each belonging to individuals lost or deceased. When played backward, some revealed a faint hum beneath the voices, identical in pitch to the ground vibrations recorded in Glacier's path that hummed at dusk. In 1994, 2 mountaineers camping near the Kahiltna Glacier reported hearing voices through their emergency radio even when it was switched off. Sound came from the speaker, one wrote, as if carried through metal. Their tape, later examined by the Park Service, captured 10 seconds of indistinct speech followed by the words, "Outpost receiving." By the 2000s, Outpost 31B had become an unofficial legend among Denali staff. Rangers traded stories of late-night calls that mimicked missing colleagues word for word. A few even claimed that responses could be triggered, that speaking into a dead radio at the right frequency sometimes drew a reply. One such attempt was made on the 12th of October 2009, when Communications Officer Marcus Lee stayed overnight at the decommissioned Eelson base to test emergency repeaters. At 1:58 a.m., his log notes show he transmitted a brief check-in on the historical ranger frequency. Denali Dispatch, this is Eelson, monitoring old 31B channel. Do you read? The reply came 6 seconds later. The voice was faint but clear. Copy, Eelson, Outpost 31B receiving. Lee answered, "Who is this?" Silence. Then, "Still here, still waiting." The message ended at exactly 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Audio engineers confirmed no other transmitters active within 200 miles that night. Atmospheric conditions were normal, no ionospheric bounce possible. The origin point triangulated roughly to where Outpost 31B once stood. When a recovery crew flew to the coordinates weeks later, they found the cabin half collapsed, buried in snowdrift. Inside, the rusted radio panel had been reassembled. Coaxial cables ran neatly to the dormant antenna, ends freshly stripped, as if recently handled. There were no footprints in or out. In 2013, a shortwave hobbyist in Fairbanks, picked up what he thought was a park emergency drill. The transmission began with wind, then a faint male voice repeating, "Copy 31B, storm rising." The signal grew louder, then broke into static before ending with the phrase, "We're still on station." That same evening, Denali's Ranger Dispatch received an identical recording from its automated receiver, time-stamped to within 1 second of the hobbyist's log. Park communications specialists now treat the anomaly as unresolved archival feedback, a possible artifact of older magnetic transmissions looping in the atmosphere. Yet radio historians point out that the frequencies used by the Outpost were long discontinued and cannot propagate across decades. The last confirmed incident occurred in February 2024. A field ranger monitoring avalanche sensors reported hearing Morse code bursts on her handheld, set 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, SOS. When she replied, the static cleared briefly, and a male voice said, "Tell them the line's still open." The transmission ended at the now familiar mark, 0 hours 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Outpost 31B remains abandoned, half swallowed by snow and silence. The antenna still stands crooked against the wind, wrapped in frost. Rangers who visited describe a faint clicking from within the radio cabinet, as if someone is gently adjusting a dial from the other side. Officially, the event is labeled residual EM interference, no source located. But in Denali's internal archives, handwritten on the last page of the station's file, one ranger added a note that was never typed. Voices continue on dead frequency, duration consistent, requests not for rescue, only acknowledgement. When asked why the park never removed the old equipment, his supervisor answered quietly, "Because every few years, the mountain still answers, and we'd rather be listening when it does." The ridge where the compass spins. In 1994, 2 park rangers from Yosemite's Northern District were conducting a route inspection near Tanaya Ridge, a narrow backbone of granite that overlooks the valley floor. Their task was routine check trail markers, document erosion, and update safety signage. Halfway along the ridge, Ranger James Holbrook noticed his compass needle spinning without pause. His partner's GPS device, a new model at the time, flickered between coordinates, showing them in 3 separate locations at once. They made a note of it in the field report, labeling it localized interference. Over the next 30 years, that phrase would appear in at least 12 similar reports, all within the same 2-mile stretch. Tanaya Ridge is not a popular hiking route. The elevation is steep, and the granite slabs are often slick with meltwater well into early summer. Yet the few who venture up often report strange sensations, short bursts of nausea, an overwhelming feeling of pressure in the ears, and a quiet hum that seems to vibrate just below hearing range. In 2003, a research volunteer named Daniel Pierce brought recording equipment to capture ambient wind patterns. The footage shows his compass jerking violently, the needle reversing direction every few seconds. He laughs at first, calling it a cheap compass. Then his voice lowers. "It's moving faster now," he says, before the recording cuts off. His pack was found the next day, contents undisturbed, but Daniel was never recovered. Rangers later discovered that the ridge sits directly above a dense cluster of magnetite deposits, iron-rich minerals capable of distorting navigation instruments. Geologists confirmed this in 2005, suggesting the phenomenon was natural, though the field strength readings varied too sharply to match known patterns. One ranger noted, "The readings spike like a pulse, not a steady field." Locals have their own stories. Climbers who bivouac on nearby ledges sometimes wake to find their ropes coiled in odd shapes, as if rotated during the night. Others describe hearing faint clicks or whispers through metal carabiners. Park historian Ellen Stroud once compiled oral accounts from the 1,950 seconds, when early survey teams avoided the ridge entirely. "They called it the place where the compass loses its mind," she wrote. "Even the mules refused to walk certain stretches." On the 12th of September 2010, an experienced hiker named Thomas Avery, then 46 years old, set out along the Tanaya approach to collect photographic references for a park orientation brochure. His Jeep's log shows normal movement until 2:37 p.m., when his location began looping between 3 points spaced hundreds of feet apart. When search teams arrived, they found his tripod upright, camera still attached, facing a stand of pine trees. The final image captured was a blur of motion, no human figure, only streaks of grey and white, consistent with lens vibration. A ranger named Carlos Rivas led the search effort. In his report he wrote, "Every instrument behaved erratically. Compass drift exceeded 120 degrees. Jeeps lost fix entirely. Radios cut out in intervals. Felt something like static in the air, not cold, just pressure." The team established perimeter points using visual markers instead of coordinates, working by sight and flag tape. By morning, they were exhausted. No trace of Avery was found. In the years that followed, the park administration commissioned a magnetic survey of Tanaya Ridge. The data revealed a series of localized distortions, each less than 20 meters wide. Geophysicist Laura Chen, who analyzed the results, remarked that the anomalies resembled magnetic vortices, tight spirals of magnetic field lines that shift with temperature and solar radiation. "If those readings are correct," she wrote, "this would be one of the few places on Earth where magnetic vectors change direction hourly." Even so, the readings failed to explain the human element, the consistent sense among visitors that the ridge pulls. Hiker diaries collected by park archives describe a compulsion to continue walking, even when exhausted or en route. One entry, dated the 14th of June 2016, reads, "Something about the horizon feels wrong. The sky and the ground move the same way. I thought I saw someone ahead, but when I stopped, it stopped too." The author, later identified as college student Rebecca Liu, returned safely but abandoned her gear mid-trail. When asked why, she simply said, "I didn't need it anymore. I was almost there." She could not recall what "there" meant. Search and rescue teams now treat the Tanaya Ridge zone with caution. Compasses are used only as secondary tools, and drones frequently lose calibration above the granite fields. Rangers navigating the area follow rope lines and maintain verbal contact every 30 seconds. "The trick," said one rescuer, "is to keep your eyes down. Don't look too long at the skyline. That's when people start walking where the ridge narrows." Over the decades, theories have multiplied. Some suggest that low-frequency vibration from shifting bedrock might induce brief disorientation or hallucination. Others think solar activity interacts with the magnetite veins, generating transient electromagnetic pulses. The most unsettling hypothesis comes from a 2018 field technician who proposed that the distortions themselves may interfere with neural orientation, the brain's internal compass, causing people to walk toward magnetic minima rather than away. In a quiet interview archived by the Yosemite Historical Society, retired ranger Susan McCall summarized her decades of experience on the ridge. "When the instruments fail, the forest feels alive in a different way. Not hostile, just aware, like it's watching how far we'll go." Despite new technology and high-resolution mapping, the anomalies remain unchanged. Jeep's logs continue to loop and distort. Rangers still note erratic compass behavior. Visitors still wander too far. On clear afternoons, when the wind is low, the ridge is silent except for the faint hum that some say is the sound of the rock itself, an ancient resonance, guiding those who listen a little too closely. The reports never end with explanations, only coordinates, weather notes, and the same closing line that has appeared in ranger journals for decades. Subject likely lured off course under unknown influence. The vanishing trail at Deep Creek. Deep Creek lies along the western edge of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a calm corridor of clear water and winding paths that for decades was considered one of the safest day hike areas in the region. The trail begins near Bryson City, North Carolina, and moves upward through hardwood forest before crossing the remains of an abandoned logging road. For most of the year, it's quiet, only the steady sound of water against rock and the occasional murmur of wind between the poplars. But among park staff, the name Deep Creek now carries a quiet warning. Since 1987, at least 19 hikers have vanished along that route, all within a stretch less than 3 miles long. The earliest disappearance occurred on the 6th of April 1987. A man named Alan Preston, aged 32, left his car in the lower lot just before noon. When he failed to return by dusk, rangers began a standard search. His footprints led along the main path for about half a mile before veering sharply left, cutting into thick laurel brush. The soil there was damp, showing clear impressions that stopped at the edge of a shallow drop-off, a 6-foot embankment that opened onto dense undergrowth. There were no signs of a fall, no torn fabric, no gear, just a final heel print, half pressed into the mud as if he had stepped forward into nothing. Over the next 2 decades, similar cases followed. Each began the same way, hikers leaving well-marked trails, sometimes in view of others, then disappearing into terrain where movement was nearly impossible. The cases were logged under disorientation due to terrain confusion, but as ranger logs accumulated, an odd pattern emerged. In several reports, search teams noted that portions of the trail appeared shifted, with new clearings or eroded edges that hadn't been there in prior months. Trees that once lined the route were gone, replaced by uneven gaps. A 1,994 maintenance record even described a visible break in trail continuity, as if the path had realigned itself several yards downhill. Locals began calling the area the moving path. At first, it was a joke among seasonal staff, but after 2 veteran rangers, Tim Harlan and Victor Price, went missing during a post-flood inspection in 2008, the tone changed. They were experienced backcountry officers, both familiar with the terrain, equipped with radios, compasses, and full packs. Their last radio transmission came at 15:42 hours. Trail section ahead looks different. Stand by. The signal cut and no further contact was made. When a recovery team reached the coordinates, they found nothing unusual, just a cleared area where the path should have been, except it ended abruptly at a wall of brush. By morning, one of the search volunteers, Sarah Coates, noticed something strange. The jeep's line marking their route overlapped itself twice, showing them walking in a circle without realizing it. It was like the trail folded over itself, she said in a later interview. We kept ending up in the same place, but the trees were in different spots. The team eventually found both rangers' radios lying side by side, batteries drained, with no visible damage. In 2013, the park commissioned a topographic survey of the Deep Creek corridor using LiDAR imaging. The data revealed subtle but distinct shifts in slope alignment compared to earlier maps, sections of hillside that had moved several meters without landslide evidence. Geologists concluded that underground water channels may be eroding soft layers beneath the surface, slowly altering the ground's contour. Yet this didn't explain the reports from hikers who claimed to see sections of trail appear or vanish between morning and afternoon. One account came from a couple, David and Michelle Carter, who hiked the trail in 2016. We reached a junction marked with a wooden post. Michelle told investigators there was an arrow pointing left, labeled Deep Creek Falls. We took that path and walked for about 20 minutes before realizing the sound of water had faded. Then the path just ended. It was cleanly cut, like it had been built and then stopped halfway. When we turned around, the signpost was gone. They retraced their steps, but never found the junction again. Rangers examining the area found no evidence of a secondary trail or signpost. Soil samples taken near the supposed junction showed compacted footprints that continued into heavy brush before disappearing. The Carter's phone Jeep recorded a straight-line route that diverged 90 degrees from the actual mapped trail. It's like their devices followed a road that wasn't there, said investigator Harold Green. Over time, even seasoned rangers began noting a peculiar sensory detail. Reported by survivors, the air along the missing sections felt thinner, slightly colder, and carried a faint metallic taste. It's not altitude, Ranger Evelyn Foster explained. It feels like the atmosphere changes for a few seconds. People stop talking when they feel it. A 2019 report from backcountry team leader Jason Monroe summarized the concern in careful language. Observed temporary alteration of perceived trail layout. Environmental readings stable. Recommend further mapping. Cause unknown. Locals have connected the vanishings to older folklore. In early Cherokee accounts, the Deep Creek Valley was called Unatsahi, meaning place that moves beneath. Oral histories describe hunters following deer tracks that seem to sink into the ground and vanish. Some elders spoke of a living path that shifted to hide its secrets from those who walked it without permission. For modern park officials, such stories remain cultural notes, not explanations, yet the practical safety measures now reflect a quiet acknowledgement. Trail markers near Deep Creek are replaced twice yearly. Visitors are advised not to hike after 4 p.m. when shadows obscure landmarks and orientation errors increase. GPS units are often unreliable in the lower canyon, showing slow drifts in elevation data even when stationary. As of 2024, the total number of unexplained disappearances in the Deep Creek corridor stands at 21. Every case begins the same: a marked path, calm weather, no distress calls, and every recovery effort ends with a similar description written in the ranger logs. Trail continuity uncertain at location. Subject likely deviated from known route under unknown influence. Today, hikers who pass through notice small changes they can't explain, switchbacks that feel new, clearings that weren't there before, familiar bends that suddenly open toward empty air. The landscape seems to remember differently each time it's seen, as if the trail itself is still deciding where to lead. The voice beyond the pines. In early October 1979, a park ranger named Robert Ellison filed a report from Yosemite's Hetch Hetchy district. The entry was short. Male hiker, 34, reported hearing a voice calling his name from the tree line. No one located. Returned safely but shaken. The case never made it beyond the logbook, one of hundreds recorded by rangers who have since admitted that they don't fully understand what draws people off the trail. Across North America, from Yosemite to the Great Smoky Mountains, hikers have disappeared within steps of marked paths. Many are later found barefoot, their gear intact, their tracks leading into dense brush or steep ravines where no one would reasonably walk. The pattern, quiet and persistent, has been discussed privately among search teams for decades. In Sequoia National Park, 1988, a volunteer named Karen Dyer was combing a ridge near Mineral King when her radio picked up faint interference static, then what sounded like a woman's voice repeating a single word, "Come." She marked the location and returned with another ranger, but the signal never reappeared. "We thought it was bleed through from another frequency," she recalled years later, "but it felt close, like it was right behind us." Rangers are trained to avoid speculation, but stories like these began surfacing in briefings and late-night debrief sessions, where official language faded and unease took its place. In 1993, a group of 4 hikers near Yellowstone's Specimen Ridge vanished after one of them claimed to hear a child crying just off the path. The rescue operation found their camp undisturbed, coffee still warm on a portable stove. When they were finally located 3 days later, 2 miles uphill, all 4 said the same thing, that they had followed a sound that seemed to move just ahead of them. The National Park Service does not list unknown auditory influence as a category in its incident database. Most reports end with phrases like "subject became disoriented" or "strayed from established trail" under unclear circumstances. Yet when former ranger and search coordinator Thomas Avery was interviewed in 2011, he stated plainly, "We've had people step off a path in full daylight, within sight of others, and vanish as if pulled. We don't know what it is." The phrase, "the pull," appears in internal training notes from several Western parks. It refers not to an object or a creature, but to a feeling, an inexplicable urge to leave the safety of the path. Survivors often describe it as curiosity, others as compulsion. In Glacier National Park, 2004, a solo hiker named Andrew Pike left a voice memo on his phone before his disappearance. It was recovered days later near a frozen creek. In the recording, he can be heard saying quietly, "I can see someone standing near the trees. They look like me." His body was found half a mile uphill, barefoot, with no signs of struggle. Psychologists studying these patterns often cite wilderness disorientation syndrome, a condition linked to sensory deprivation and stress. Yet seasoned rangers, many with decades of experience, claim the behavior doesn't fit. Victims often leave well-marked trails during calm weather in areas they've hiked before and with working compasses or GPS devices that later fail to record their movement. In 2015, a retired ranger named Susan McCall described an incident near Great Smoky Mountains National Park that remains unsolved. 2 campers radioed her station, reporting distant lights flickering between trees along Tanaya Ridge. They believed another group was lost. When McCall arrived with a rescue unit, there were no footprints, no signs of campfire, and the ground where the lights were seen was marshland and impassable at night. They said the lights moved like lanterns, McCall said, but nothing burns that steady in the fog. Among park staff, quiet warnings persist. Don't follow voices, don't chase lights, don't investigate if your compass falters near water. These are not official policies, but oral traditions passed from veteran to rookie, written between the lines of safety briefings. One of the most studied clusters lies in the Sierra Nevada range, where 11 hikers have gone missing since 1981 along a 10-mile corridor between Tuolumne Meadows and May Lake. Search grids show the same pattern each time, the initial track leading slightly left of the trail, followed by erratic movement into thicker terrain. A 1,998 internal summary notes, possible environmental cause unconfirmed. Electromagnetic interference observed near granite outcrops. Audio anomalies reported. Technology has offered little clarity. Drone footage from missing person searches occasionally shows faint heat signatures in places teams already cleared. In one 2019 case in Olympic National Park, a ranger named Henry Castro reported seeing a moving shape on thermal imaging that disappeared when he reached the area. He marked it on GPS. Heat source ceased. To the public, these stories remain anecdotal, but among rangers, they form a quiet body of knowledge, an unspoken understanding that something beyond explanation operates at the edge of their maps. You can feel when the forest goes still, one veteran ranger said. That's when we tell people to turn around. The earliest mention of this phenomenon may date back to 1912, when an explorer named Henry Stoddard wrote in his Sierra diaries about whispers through stone and paths that move when not watched. Modern investigators have dismissed such notes as poetic exaggeration, but they echo through a century of reports written in plain, factual language. Despite decades of observation, there is no consistent explanation. Some link it to infrasound low-frequency vibrations caused by wind interacting with mountainous terrain, known to produce anxiety or disorientation. Others suggest magnetite deposits in bedrock could interfere with navigation equipment or even brain activity. None of these theories explain why victims often describe hearing familiar voices, sometimes their own names, sometimes sounds resembling family members calling them. In one recorded 2009 interview, Ranger Kevin Bell summarized the unease best. The forest has a way of calling back what walks too far. We don't know what does it, but we know when it starts. The phenomenon continues to this day, with new reports logged every season. Each is catalogued, mapped, and filed away with others that read almost identically calm conditions, short distance from trailhead, no evidence of distress, only a line of footprints leading toward the trees, and then nothing. There is no official name for it. Rangers simply call it the lure, the static in the trees. In the spring of 1999, a seasonal ranger named Leonard Pratt began hearing what he described as thin static while monitoring a rescue channel in Olympic National Park. The interference appeared irregular, brief bursts of white noise that vanished whenever he turned his receiver off and on. At first, he assumed it was a damaged antenna or moisture in the line. Then, during a maintenance sweep near the Bogachil River, the static began again, followed by what sounded like faint voices overlapping through the frequency. Pratt later wrote in his field notes, "Could distinguish words, but not meaning. Felt like someone was repeating a call sign that wasn't ours." That incident was the first of many that would link missing hiker cases in Olympic National Park to unexplained electromagnetic disturbances. Over the following decade, at least 9 disappearances occurred within regions where rangers reported temporary radio blackout, malfunction, or audible static that seemed to emanate not from the device, but from the environment itself. In 2005, a search operation for 2 7-year-old hiker Paul Mendez took rescuers deep into the forest east of the Hoh Rainforest Visitor Center. The weather was calm, no storms, no wind interference. Yet, as the team advanced, every handheld radio produced identical bursts of static at precisely timed intervals, about 30 seconds apart. It wasn't feedback, said Ranger Kelly Rhodes. It was patterned, like a pulse. Mendez's tent was found days later, zipped shut, supplies intact, his boots neatly placed by the flap. His tracks led 50 yards into a cedar grove and stopped. Technicians from the National Park Service Communications Unit were dispatched to investigate. Their instruments recorded electromagnetic spikes, averaging between 0.3 and 0.6 milligauss above baseline, too weak to harm equipment, but strong enough to cause interference. The anomalies appeared strongest near clusters of Sitka spruce and western red cedar, but vanished without trace when the team moved downhill. "It's like walking through a radio," one technician remarked. "You can step in and out of the signal." Local residents along the park boundary had long spoken of the whisper trees, places where old-growth trunks seemed to hum during calm weather. One logger, interviewed in 1978, recalled shutting off his chainsaw when he realized the humming continued at the same pitch as his idling motor. Scientists later attributed these sounds to subsonic vibrations caused by wind compression through tree hollows, but the connection between sound, static, and disappearance remains circumstantial. In 2010, hikers near the Quinault River recorded faint clicking noises on a portable camera shortly before one member of their group, 2-year-old university student Megan Hart, wandered off trail and vanished. The recovered footage, timestamp 17:4, shows the group pausing as a faint hissing grows louder. One voice says, "Is that rain?" Another answers, "No, it's coming from the trees." Then the camera cuts. Hart's body was never found, though her jacket was discovered 4 months later, folded neatly over a log less than half a mile from where she disappeared. Sound technicians who reviewed the recording later noted that the static was composed of low-frequency oscillations consistent with electromagnetic discharge rather than rainfall. Theories circulated that magnetic anomalies in the Olympic Peninsula, combined with high humidity, might create natural interference patterns capable of disorienting hikers. But these same patterns appear only sporadically, often in the exact locations where disappearances cluster. A veteran ranger named Thomas Avery, who had previously investigated the Tanaya Ridge anomalies in Yosemite, visited Olympic in 2011 as part of a cross-park environmental study. His internal memo, later archived, reads, "Magnetic activity intermittent. Audible static persists, even with all transmitters off. Feels atmospheric, not electrical. Crew reported dizziness and visual distortion near Spruce Grove. Recommend immediate withdrawal." The team withdrew that afternoon after a second ranger, identified only as H, claimed to hear her own name whispered through her headset, despite all channels being open silence. By 2015, the National Park Service introduced signal testing as part of missing person protocols. During one such search that year for backpacker Louis Carter, technicians placed geophones along the Quinault trailhead to monitor ambient vibration. The data captured faint rhythmic bursts, exactly 3.2 seconds apart, occurring only when teams stood still. When they began walking, the pattern stopped. "The forest listens," one ranger said quietly in his log. "It waits until you stop moving." Satellite imagery has shown no structural explanation for these fields, no buried cables, no old mining equipment, no lightning damage. Geological surveys identify minor magnetite content in the soil, but not enough to produce interference. Still, the reports continue. As recently as July 2023, a ranger named Alison Green noted hearing a rising hiss through her bodycam microphone, though her radio was powered off. Later, review confirmed faint static audible in the background, increasing in pitch for 10 seconds before fading completely. Rangers have developed informal precautions: limit radio use in the Hoh and Bogachil corridors, avoid pausing too long in spruce groves during still weather, and never follow unidentified voices carried through interference. These are not official rules, but lessons quietly passed down between shifts. As one retired officer described it, "We call it the forest's own frequency. If you tune to it, it answers back." Visitors who have reported similar experiences describe the sound not as frightening, but strangely familiar, like the faint noise from an untuned television late at night. Some feel compelled to follow it deeper into the trees, believing someone is calling them from ahead. Others claim it forms words only when recorded and played back later. Most leave before testing that theory twice. To this day, the static remains an unexplained feature of the park's western forest. Radios short out, compasses drift, voices rise through frequencies that should be silent, and sometimes, between the peaks of interference, a name is spoken quiet, indistinct, but unmistakable enough that whoever hears it steps forward before thinking. The report always ends the same way: signal interference present. Subject left trail for unknown reason. Search ongoing. The path that changed overnight. In August 2012, a maintenance crew at Yosemite National Park arrived to repaint distance markers along the Fern Loop Trail. When they compared their GPS maps to the physical path, something didn't match. The coordinates placed the first trail junction 180 meters northeast of its real position. Thinking it was a mapping glitch, they reset their devices. But when they walked the full route, the numbers stayed off every turn, every rise, every bend, slightly displaced from its previous record. The section they had marked the week before was now misaligned, as if the trail had quietly shifted during the night. No landslides, no flooding, no fallen trees explained the change. Rangers double-checked satellite data from the National Geospatial Survey taken just 4 days earlier. The older image showed the trail following its known course beside a small creek. The newest image, taken hours before the team's arrival, showed the same trail curling away from the creek, crossing ground that had never been cleared. Yet on the ground, there were footprints, old blazes, and even the crew's own painted marks perfectly intact just farther east. The incident was written off as a cartographic error until similar reports began emerging from other parks. In 2015, staff in the Smoky Mountains noted an overnight displacement along the Russell Field Trail. The following morning, hikers were confused to find fresh signage pointing in new directions. The boards were bolted, not nailed. Ranger Kelly Ruiz wrote, "No vandalism, no footprints. It's like the posts were pulled, moved, and set again by the same hands that built them." In Glacier National Park, surveyors in 2017 recorded a deviation of 0.3 degrees in trail, heading between two identical GPS scans taken 12 hours apart. That difference might sound negligible, but over the 2-mile stretch, it meant the trailhead appeared 25 meters out of place. When they returned the next day, the original coordinates were back. To hikers, these details go unnoticed, but for park staff who maintain digital trail maps, the shifts have become a recurring problem. One technician described it as data that won't stay still. Even archived coordinates seem to rewrite themselves, though the timestamps remain unchanged. Theories abound. Some suggest tectonic micro-movement, a slow adjustment of rock layers beneath surface soil that subtly repositions landmarks without visible disturbance. Others propose human error, miscalibrated devices, or faulty satellite alignment. Yet the inconsistencies persist even when verified by multiple instruments from separate agencies. In 2018, a backcountry ranger named Michael Perez began documenting these anomalies as part of an independent study. He recorded coordinates, elevation, barometric pressure, and temperature for each point along a 12-mile section of Yellowstone's Washburn Trail. For 3 weeks, the readings were stable. Then, on September 9th, between midnight and 6 a.m., the entire dataset shifted by nearly 300 feet north. Perez checked his equipment, fresh batteries, no software updates, no tampering. When he hiked the trail again, he noticed that a section of timberline fencing he'd measured earlier was now missing entirely. The The posts weren't broken, they were gone. In their place stood 3 perfectly circular impressions in the soil, evenly spaced, like something heavy had pressed down and then lifted away. By 2020, enough similar reports had accumulated that the National Park Service convened a quiet interdepartmental review called the Terrain Stability Study. Their goal was to determine whether unrecorded micro-landslides or subsurface shifts were altering Jeep's reflection data. Preliminary results were inconclusive. The only statement released read, "Certain regions exhibit inconsistent geospatial alignment not attributable to known natural or technological causes." For field rangers, the effect is subtle but unsettling. A familiar turn becomes unfamiliar. A clearing seems to lean in the wrong direction. Even seasoned guides occasionally find themselves facing terrain that feels slightly rewritten. "You walk the same trail for years," one ranger said. "Then one morning, the trees are standing in new places." Search and rescue teams have come to rely on analog methods, compass bearings, hand-drawn sketches, and even memory to navigate areas where maps cannot be trusted. Digital navigation gets confused, noted Ranger Dana Hughes during a 2022 operation in Olympic National Park. Coordinates drift mid-hike. It's safer to trust the land itself, even when it's the land that's changing. Some specialists have proposed that temperature gradients or shifting groundwater might bend radio signals, causing apparent movement in mapping systems. Others point to a little-known phenomenon called spatial echo, in which GPS reflections from nearby cliffs create duplicate signal paths. But those explanations collapse under one detail. In many cases, the physical markers signposts, fences, cairns also move. They are not digital errors, they are physical displacements. In July 2021, a team installing trail cameras in Zion National Park discovered that a marker post they'd bolted into limestone 4 days earlier had reappeared 30 feet downhill, bolts intact, threads unbroken, as though the rock itself had rotated. The footage showed nothing between 1:13 a.m. and 1:16 a.m., save for a brief static pulse that whitened the frame for exactly 3 seconds. After that, the post stood in its new position. Quietly, some rangers now refer to these events as overnight rewrites. There's no official term, no press release, only a shared understanding that certain trails do not stay where they are put. Maps are revised constantly, but field notes still end the same way. Route altered since last record, no geological cause determined. Visitors walking these paths today would never notice. The bends look natural, the soil undisturbed, the markers aged evenly. But those who have worked the land long enough can sense when something's off a familiar turn that now faces west instead of east, a stream crossing that wasn't there yesterday, or a ridge that looks slightly too far away. Some call it erosion, others a trick of light. Yet the older rangers, the ones who've seen it happen more than once, describe it in simpler terms: the park adjusting itself, quietly, without reason, and without anyone's permission. The lake that swallowed the camp. In the summer of 1982, 3 campers, John Redding, his sister Marlene, and their friend Brian Lasker, set up their tents beside Mirror Lake, a small alpine basin tucked deep within Wyoming's Wind River Range. The weather was clear, the air thin and still, the surrounding cliffs mirrored perfectly in the water. The group was scheduled to return on July 19. When they didn't arrive, rangers hiked to the site. What they found looked like the remains of a place erased overnight. The campsite was gone, only shallow impressions of tent stakes remained in the gravel, as if the canvas had been lifted straight upward. Nearby, the fire ring was half submerged, its stones glistening under several inches of new water. No footprints led away from the site, no overturned gear, no evidence of struggle. The only item recovered was a camera wedged between 2 submerged roots, film still intact. When developed, the last frame showed the lake at dusk, its surface perfectly still, except for faint ripples radiating from the center. That image would become the first in a long line of records, now labeled by park staff as the Mirror Lake pattern. Between 1982 and 2021, at least 14 disappearances were reported around the lake or nearby inlets. Each incident occurred at night, usually between 1 and 4 a.m., and in every case, the victims' campsites showed signs of sudden submersion, mud-slick soil, displaced stones, and gear left partially under shallow water. Geological surveys ruled out landslides or glacial runoff. The lake has no major inflow and drains through a narrow creek that could never flood so fast. Yet water levels at Mirror Lake appear to fluctuate dramatically without cause. Rangers have documented rises of up to 12 inches overnight, followed by complete return to normal within 48 hours. No seismic activity accompanies these changes. In August 1994, Ranger Donald Weiss led a night watch after reports of faint light moving over the lake's surface. His team set up 2 motion-activated cameras along the eastern ridge. At 2:17 a.m., both cameras triggered, capturing a bluish reflection across the water that lasted less than 3 seconds. The same light was visible in aerial photographs taken the following morning as a thin mist trail stretching diagonally across the lake. Weiss's log entry was brief: observed light disturbance, no sound, no known source. Temporary rise in water level noted at 5:40. Locals in the nearby town of Dubois have long told stories about the lake. Early sheepherders called it the breathing water, claiming the shoreline advanced and receded like the slow inhale and exhale of a living thing. One 1931 account from trapper Henry McAllister described the same phenomenon decades before the disappearances began. The lake moves after dark. You can see it creep up the stones like it's feeling for something. In 2006, a pair of graduate hydrologists from the University of Wyoming installed pressure sensors to monitor changes. Their instruments recorded minute surges every 47 minutes, followed by a measurable drop in barometric pressure directly above the lake. "It's behaving like a closed system," one of them later said, "except it's not closed." During their final week of testing, one of the instruments vanished from its tripod during calm conditions. The line to shore remained taut. By 2012, Mirror Lake had gained a quiet reputation among rangers as a place to avoid after dark. Rescue logs mention auditory anomalies, subtle vibrations in tent poles, faint clicks like distant dripping, and a deep, resonant tone sometimes described as the hum. Those who have camped nearby say the tone grows louder toward midnight, then stops suddenly, leaving silence so complete that even the insects seem to vanish. One of the strangest cases occurred in 2018, when a group of 6 experienced backpackers set camp on the northern slope. At 3:12 a.m., one of their motion sensors triggered and recorded a sudden temperature drop from 12 degrees Celsius to 3 degrees Celsius within 30 seconds. The footage shows nothing unusual except the surface of the lake darkening, as though shadow passed beneath the water. In the morning, one tent was gone, its occupants missing. The remaining campers swore they hadn't heard a thing. The missing pair's gear reappeared days later, scattered in a dry meadow half a mile away, covered in a fine layer of silt. Environmental scientists who later examined the lake found no sinkholes or caverns beneath it, but sonar scans did reveal intermittent voids, pockets of water moving in circular motion deep below the bedrock, almost like slow whirlpools buried in stone. These pockets shift location each season, which could explain the unpredictable water level changes, though not the disappearances. Rangers who've worked the area longest believe something about Mirror Lake's depth remains hidden. "It's not a deep lake," said retired Ranger Harold Nevers, "but it feels deeper than it is. You throw a rock in, you don't hear it hit bottom." As recently as 2023, drones have captured faint glimmers moving beneath the water at night, brief pulses of light traveling in arcs, sometimes forming perfect circles before fading. No known biological or mineral reaction matches the pattern. In all official documentation, the cause remains unconfirmed environmental anomaly. Mirror Lake is open to visitors year-round. Campers are advised to pitch their tents at least 150 feet from shore and to avoid staying overnight during periods of still air and full moonlight. Unofficially, rangers add one more rule: never sleep facing the water. The search logs still show the same closing phrase, written in identical tone across 4 decades. Subject presumed, submerged. Cause unknown. Lake stable upon return. The hollow that swallowed sound. In the northern section of Montana's Glacier National Park lies an unmarked depression between two ridges of slate and pine. It doesn't appear on tourist maps, and few visitors notice it from the main trail. Rangers call it Silent Hollow, a shallow valley that behaves like no other landscape in the park. Here, sound seems to die mid-air. Conversations drop to whispers, footfalls vanish, and even the steady noise of the wind becomes strange, flattened, distant, as if the air itself refuses to carry it. The first recorded mention of Silent Hollow comes from a ranger's field, log dated the 3rd of June 1974. Ranger Alan McCready was following a wildlife corridor survey when he noted area approximately 0, 6 miles north of McDonald Creek. All sound diminished. Could not hear own radio test tone at 3 meters. Temporary hearing loss suspected. McCready's partner later confirmed that both their radios functioned perfectly once they climbed out of the hollow. Over the years, similar reports followed. In 1986, a rescue team searching for missing hiker Laura Pine entered the same valley and described complete loss of audio feedback on their handheld transmitters. Voices cut off mid-syllable, one member wrote. Could see mouths move, no sound. Their digital sound meter, an analog model with a simple needle indicator, dropped to 0. When they left the depression, the readings returned instantly. Pine was never found. By the early 2000s, the phenomenon had attracted enough attention for the Park Service to invite an acoustics researcher, Dr. Frank Heller from the University of Montana, to conduct controlled tests. His team set up 4 synchronized microphones across the hollow and fired blank cartridges from a starter pistol at regular intervals. On playback, the recordings captured only the first half of each, shot an abrupt cutoff, followed by total silence. It's as if the second half of the waveform never existed, Heller wrote in his 2004 report. The energy isn't reflected, absorbed, or refracted. It simply disappears. The team also noted unusual readings from temperature sensors. Within the hollow, the air was consistently 3 degrees cooler than surrounding terrain, yet no visible fog or wind indicated convection. Heller theorized that dense layers of cold air might bend sound upward, creating a localized acoustic shadow, but the effect's totality defied physics. Even at low frequencies, he observed, we should still detect ground resonance. We don't. For rangers who patrol nearby, the silence has become an unspoken marker, a boundary few cross alone. One veteran, Sarah Noland, described leading a group of visitors who grew anxious after realizing they could no longer hear the crunch of gravel beneath their boots. It's not quiet like snow quiet, she said. It's hollow quiet. You start to hear your own heartbeat and nothing else. Equipment malfunctions are common. Radios go dead, camera microphones fail, and even mechanical watches pause for seconds at a time, resuming once the wearer exits the valley. Drone flights launched from the rim often lose audio feed exactly as they dip below the tree line. In 2018, a team testing wind flow with helium balloons watched them stop moving entirely within the center of the hollow, as though suspended in still air. Locals from nearby towns have their own stories. Hunters claim their dogs refuse to enter the area, backing away with tails low. One old trapper, interviewed in 1991, said he once heard a pop in the air, like a jar opening, followed by hours of absolute silence. No birds, no trees moving, nothing, he said. Felt like the world forgot to make noise. Some scientists have suggested magnetic interference or even subsonic vibration, cancelling audible frequencies, but tests with seismographs show no activity. Others propose rare geological formations acting as natural anechoic chambers, yet rock surveys reveal nothing unusual. The valley floor is ordinary soil and shale, no caves, no voids, no metallic ore. In 2015, thermal imaging captured faint heat rings along the hollow's perimeter, circular patterns that faded inward toward the center. Specialists speculated that differences in air density might bend light and sound simultaneously, creating a self-contained atmospheric lens. But the recordings taken inside remain void of all tone, even when devices are placed directly beside each other. The disappearances connected to the hollow remained few, but chilling. Aside from Laura Pine in 1986, 2 hikers vanished in 2001 and another in 2020. In each case, search dogs lost the scent precisely where sound readings fell to 0. Helicopter crews circling overhead reported an uncanny stillness, as if the rotor blades cut through vacuum. No official restrictions block access to the area, but rangers quietly avoid scheduling hikes that pass through it. The internal safety guide notes only: auditory anomaly zone, limit duration of stay, maintain line of sight communication. Visitors who stumble upon it often describe the same sensation. Their breathing feels louder in their skull than in their ears, and their sense of direction weakens, as though deprived of the feedback that keeps movement grounded in space. When the wind eventually returns, it comes suddenly bursting through the trees, like a wave of sound reclaiming the land. Those who have witnessed it say the forest seems to sigh, every leaf rustling in unison, as if exhaling after holding its breath too long. The silence of the hollow has no official explanation, no physical boundary, and no consistent shape. Some days it expands, others it contracts, always shifting like an invisible tide. What remains constant is the stillness that waits there, a perfect absence, patient and complete. The man who walked into the fog. In late September 1996, the weather in Washington's North Cascades was clear and cold, the kind of still morning when frost clings to pine needles and the sound of boots carries far down the trail. A small hiking group, 3 visitors and 1 ranger escort, was making its way along the Thornton Lakes path when one of the men, identified later as 40-year-old Douglas Carter from Spokane, stopped and pointed toward the tree line. "Fog," he said quietly. The others saw nothing at first. Then, only a few yards ahead, a low grey curtain appeared, as if someone had poured smoke through an invisible door. It wasn't mist rolling down from the ridge. The air around them was dry, windless. The fog rose in a vertical sheet across the trail, so sharply defined that tree trunks seemed to vanish halfway through it. Ranger Peter Lang, who led the hike, recalled that Carter walked forward before anyone could react. He stepped into the haze and disappeared instantly. Lang called out, then followed within seconds, but the fog was gone. The air was empty, the path clear. Carter was nowhere. The group searched the immediate area for 2 hours, shouting until their voices cracked. By mid-afternoon, the park's search and rescue team had deployed with dogs and thermal scanners. They found no tracks beyond Carter's last footprint on the trail, just the crisp outline of a boot pressed into frost. The scent dogs circled once, whimpered, and lay down. That night, visibility across the valley remained perfect. Searchlights swept the terrain with no sign of fog or cloud formation. The official report lists the cause of disappearance as presumed fall or misadventure, though no cliffs, rivers, or hazards existed within a half-mile radius. This was not the first time such an event had been recorded. In 1971, a park patrolman named Charles Miller reported a dense, localized fog bank that appeared without weather cause near the same ridge. His log entry, preserved in the North Cascades archives, reads, "Formed in seconds, could not see hand in front of face. Air temperature dropped sharply, approx 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Dissipated before backup arrived." Miller described the incident as disorienting but brief. No one went missing that day, but he later noted that his wristwatch stopped for 6 minutes during the fog's appearance. Subsequent meteorological reviews found no evidence of moisture anomalies or cold fronts in the area. The park's microclimate studies, updated every decade, show normal fog patterns forming only in the valleys, never at the elevation where Carter vanished. In 2002, a student research team from Western Washington University visited the site with thermal cameras to replicate Miller's observations. For 3 nights, nothing happened. On the 4th, at 2:09 a.m., one camera recorded a faint light bloom, followed by a temperature drop of 8 degrees Celsius, localized within a 5-meter radius. The footage shows branches shifting slightly inward, as if drawn toward the center. The fog appeared, pale and circular, lasting 23 seconds before dissolving. "The air folded in on itself," one observer later said. None of them entered the mist. Local rangers have since come to recognize the pattern: calm air, faint ozone smell, abrupt pressure change. Some call it a mirage, others a microthermal inversion. But the details don't fit meteorology. Fog requires moisture condensation, yet the humidity during every recorded event remains below 40%. Moreover, the phenomenon ignores topography appearing mid-slope or even across ridges where airflow should prevent vapor formation. The disappearances linked to these fog walls are few 6 confirmed cases between 1,954 and 2023, but each shares a striking consistency. Witnesses describe clear visibility before and after, no transitional haze, no wind. The fog simply manifests, vertical and motionless, then vanishes as though erased. In 2015, a rescue pilot named Daniel Fox captured a brief, unexplained distortion while flying thermal reconnaissance over the Thornton Basin. Reviewing the footage later, he noted a faint outline resembling a human figure within a diffuse grey patch hovering over the tree line. It wasn't smoke or weather, he said. It looked like light bending. The figure vanished between frames. The following season, rangers installed an environmental monitor at the site. Data showed brief surges in electromagnetic activity, short bursts lasting less than 5 seconds, strong enough to scramble Jeep, and static out radios. When graphed, the pattern formed repeating peaks at 30-minute intervals, as if responding to a hidden pulse. By 2020, the phenomenon had acquired its informal name among staff, the curtain. Rangers now warn new recruits never to approach visible fog banks forming above 4,000 feet on clear days. The rule isn't in any handbook, but it's spoken often during safety briefings. If you see a wall that doesn't belong, Ranger Alicia Barnes said, don't test it. We don't know what's on the other side, or if there is one. In 2023, an amateur photographer posted an image online showing what appears to be the same ridge moments before dusk. The photo, taken from a distance, shows an uneven veil of pale mist stretching between 2 trees. In its center, faint outlines of tents can be seen, though no campsite was ever registered there. Rangers who later visited the location found nothing, only a circle of flattened grass, damp but scentless, surrounded by untouched forest. Weather models still list the Thornton Basin as one of the most stable climates in the North Cascades. It receives less fog than nearly any other area in the range. Yet, in the local ranger logs, a quiet entry repeats every few years. Anomalous fog observed, subject missing, search inconclusive. The trail remains open, but those who know the story often pause before entering. Sometimes, on early mornings when sunlight hits the ridge just right, they say the air shimmers faintly, a thin, vertical glimmer that lasts a heartbeat before dissolving into nothing at all. The ridge that repeats time. High in Colorado's San Juan Mountains, just above the timberline where the air grows thin and dry, lies a ridge so unremarkable that most hikers cross it without a second glance. It has no official trail sign, no plaque, no overlook. On the maps kept by the National Park Service, it's marked simply as Sector 9B. But among rangers who've worked those slopes long enough, it's known by another name, the ridge that repeats time. The earliest record dates to the 4th of August, 1999. 2 rangers, Anthony Reed and Melissa Vaughan, were conducting a post-storm inspection after lightning struck near US Basin Road. Their report began routinely weather, erosion, visibility until midway down the page. Both watches stopped at 14:06 for approximately 2 minutes. Radio on Channel 4 repeated the phrase "copy" that 7 times before returning to normal. Felt pressure change in ears. No visible storm activity. When they returned to camp, the log was entered, their watches ticking as if nothing had happened. At the time, the incident was treated as coincidence. But 6 years later, in July 2005, a volunteer trail crew hiking the same ridge experienced something nearly identical. Their digital watches froze at 15:32. 2 minutes later, the displays jumped forward together, restoring correct time. "We'd been walking a long switchback," the crew leader later wrote, "but when we reached the next turn, it was the same one we'd just left. Our footprints were still fresh. We hadn't turned around, but the trail had looped itself." Reports like these slowly accumulated. The details rarely changed 2 to 3 minutes of lost time, repeating radio static, a sudden drop in barometric pressure, followed by silence. Park administrators authorized installation of sensors in 2010 to measure atmospheric changes. The instruments showed something subtle but consistent. Every few days, air pressure on the ridge dropped sharply, held steady for exactly 123 seconds, and then returned to baseline. The pattern held in all seasons. In 2013, the anomaly drew outside interest. Dr. Elias Nuri, a physicist at the University of Colorado, specializing in acoustic resonance, joined a ranger survey to test the hypothesis that wind shear or thermal inversion might bend sound waves and create the illusion of looping time. Instead, his instruments captured something stranger. He transmitted a shortwave tone across the ridge at precisely 10:14 a.m. and logged the signal's decay. 2 minutes and 3 seconds later, the same tone returned at identical amplitude, though the receiver had not been set to playback. It was not an echo, Nuri wrote. It was repetition. The environment stored the signal and gave it back. After Nuri's test, the phrase environmental playback began circulating among staff. Rangers reported radio chatter repeating hours after initial transmission, voices identical in tone and timing. One log from 2016 records, Ranger Peter Holloway, acknowledging a call twice, once live, once 20 minutes later, through an inactive channel. Holloway later described hearing his own voice return like a recording the air had kept. In 2017, a Jeeps-equipped pack mule was sent across the ridge to map trail stability. The recorded data formed a perfect loop coordinates from 11:03 to 11:07 a.m., repeating exactly from 11:07 to 11:11. Thinking it was an error, researchers repeated the test the following day. The second animal produced the same duplication. Soil and rock samples revealed no magnetite, no conductive ore that could interfere with equipment. Rangers began noticing a physical side to the phenomenon. The air would thicken, the wind stall, and sound flatten, as though the world had stopped exhaling. Several described hearing faint echoes of their own footsteps delayed by half a second. One wrote, "You feel watched by the second that just passed." A drone survey in 2019 produced the first visual record. The feed stuttered, then replayed 20 seconds of footage before continuing. When technicians examined the repeated frames, they found a raven mid-flight, wings frozen, suspended across 2 identical sequences. By 2020, the Park Service quietly acknowledged the anomaly in an internal memo. Sector 9B exhibits recurrent chronometric irregularities lasting 2 to 3 minutes. Duration consistent, no hazard identified. Yet the rangers who've spent time there describe it differently. Holloway later said, "When it starts, the wind disappears. The ridge holds its breath. For exactly 2 minutes, everything forgets to move." Attempts at scientific explanation have failed. Theories include standing electromagnetic waves between granite outcrops or rare resonant frequencies that disrupt quartz crystals in the rock. Some suggest high-altitude ionization could reset low-voltage electronics, but none account for synchronized mechanical stoppage or the identical 2-minute duration across decades. Even biological monitors, strapped to hikers, show anomalies, heart rates slowing in unison, then resuming at the same instant. In 2021, a mountaineer filming a time-lapse sequence at dawn noticed something uncanny. 2 frames, separated by hours, were identical. Same clouds, same bird in flight, same light angle. His camera's internal clock displayed a gap of 123 seconds, a perfect match to the ridge's known interval. Locals from Silverton have long whispered about the area. Ranchers call it the breathing hill. Hunters claim their dogs hesitate at its edge, whining as if waiting for something unseen to finish. To them, the ridge doesn't bend time, it merely pauses it. "It's like the mountain blinks," one resident said. The phenomenon hasn't harmed anyone, though some who've stayed there report dreams afterward of walking the same trail over and over. A few awake to find their watches still stopped at 14:06, the timestamp from the first recorded case. Whether psychological or not, it adds to the quiet unease surrounding the ridge. Today, Sector 9B remains open to hikers. The official trail guide notes only unpredictable weather changes and no signs warn of temporal anomalies. Yet rangers rarely camp there overnight. They move quickly through, leaving before dusk, when the stillness tends to return. At its highest point, the ridge overlooks the entire basin. Visitors describe the view as peaceful, though photographs rarely align when compared. Landmarks seem slightly off, trees missing, shadows reversed, the world rearranged by seconds. Some researchers now wonder if the ridge functions like a natural recording loop, a closed circuit of atmosphere and magnetism trapping fragments of motion and playing them back in perfect rhythm. For the Park Service, the only certainty is its precision. Every verified occurrence lasts the same. 2 minutes, 3 seconds, then time resumes. Radios clear, watches tick, the wind returns. The event leaves no trace except a note in the day's report. The closing line never changes. Every entry, whether written in pencil or digital file, ends with the same 14 words that have appeared since 1999. Chronometric irregularity observed. Duration, 2 minutes 3 seconds, no cause determined. Time resumed normally. The camp that returned empty. In July 1998, a 6-person research team from the Utah Division of Forestry established a climate study camp in the Lasal Mountains, east of Moab. They were assigned to record tree core samples and soil moisture levels across a remote drainage near Mount Peel. The group radioed their base at 6:37 p.m. on July 11, confirming a calm evening, stable weather, and all equipment in working order. It was their final transmission. When they failed to check in 4 days later, park rangers began a search. The site was located easily by helicopter 3 yellow tents in an open clearing near a small creek. But what rescuers found on foot defied sense. The camp was perfect, untouched, and completely empty. Sleeping bags were laid out neatly inside the tents. Pots, utensils, and notebooks sat on a folding table. Coffee mugs were half filled, their contents dried into rings. The fire pit was cold, the ashes white, yet a faint scent of smoke lingered. There were no footprints beyond the tents, no drag marks, no signs of panic. It looked as though the group had stepped away mid-conversation and never returned. The ranger in charge of the operation, Thomas Avery, wrote in his log, "No sign of wildlife disturbance, food intact, no spoilage or insect activity despite ambient temperature. Absence estimated between 24 and 48 hours. Later testing confirmed the milk and fruit at the site had not spoiled, though days of heat should have ruined them. Search dogs were brought from Grand Junction, but behaved strangely. Each one lost the scent within 20 feet of the camp perimeter, circling and lying down as if disoriented. By the third day, helicopters with thermal imaging joined the effort. The sensors detected no human heat signatures within 10 miles, only the consistent thermal echo of the campfire stones, still faintly warm. The following morning, July 16, rangers returned to find subtle differences. The ashes in the fire pit were darker and clumped together, as though recently dampened. The tents had shifted position by inches, and condensation had formed on the mugs. No new footprints appeared, yet the campsite looked newly occupied. The report from that morning ends tersely. Camp has reconfigured to prior state, no cause observed. Then, 2 nights later, a brief transmission was picked up on the park's emergency frequency. It lasted 6 seconds, faint static, followed by a voice saying, "Hold position." Analysis suggested it matched one of the missing researchers, Sarah Dunn, but her radio was never found. By July 20, the operation was formally suspended. 5 days later, hikers in a dry creek bed 12 miles north found a row of metal sample tubes, each labeled with the team's ID numbers. The tubes were clean, unweathered, and aligned in a straight line pointing east. Rangers recovered them without explanation. The Lasal incident quickly became one of the most perplexing disappearances in Utah park history. Unlike typical missing person cases, it carried evidence of temporal distortion objects preserved beyond reason, conditions resetting overnight, and untraceable communications. The official report cited environmental unknowns. Among park staff, the case acquired a simpler name, the camp that came back. In 2005, aerial photogrammetry of the basin revealed something even stranger. The creek beside the site had shifted course by nearly 2 meters since maps made in 1997, yet the sediment layers showed no sign of erosion or flood activity. Tree ring counts around the clearing indicated growth several years younger than the surrounding forest, as if that patch of land had been reset. Botanists suggested soil subsidence, but the uniform age of the regrown vegetation implied a single, sudden event rather than gradual change. Locals from nearby Spanish Valley had their own stories about the area. Older Navajo oral histories called that slope the valley where seasons wait. Hunters told of hearing thunder twice in a clear sky, or seeing fires still burning days after snowfall. Those legends had long been dismissed as folklore, until the 1998 case mirrored their patterns almost exactly. Further tests conducted between 2001 and 2015 recorded intermittent anomalies. Compass bearings swung east before stabilizing. Audio recorders captured low pulses repeating every 2 minutes, steady and mechanical, with no nearby machinery to explain them. In 2012, a camera left running overnight recorded 36 hours of darkness. No animal movement, no wind, not even stars. Then, in one frame, at precisely 2:14 a.m., the entire clearing flashed white for less than a second. The next frame was normal again. A field technician from Salt Lake City later analyzed soil magnetism from the basin. The reading showed microparticles of magnetite aligned 40 degrees off true north, as if briefly exposed to a powerful field. "It's as if a magnetic wave rolled through," he wrote, "then left nothing behind but a faint rearrangement." When Ranger Jacob Lewis revisited the site in 2018, he noted that the stone fire ring remained intact, but its ash had hardened into a smooth crust resembling fused glass. Lab testing confirmed trace amounts of vitrified quartz, which typically forms only under temperatures exceeding 1,700 degrees Celsius. Yet none of the surrounding stones showed burn marks. Lewis's report concluded carefully: possible extreme localized heat event, non-combustive, no known ignition source. The file was archived quietly. A year later, an anonymous package arrived at the Utah State Archives containing a single roll of undeveloped 35mm film labeled Lasal, July 1998. The images showed an ordinary camp, the missing team smiling near their tents. But in the final frame, taken at dusk, a sixth figure stands apart, slightly blurred, turned away from the camera. The others face the lens. She faces the opposite direction, watch lifted toward her face. The time imprint along the film's border reads 14:06, the same moment that appears in multiple ranger reports from other parks: Yosemite's Tanaya Ridge, Colorado's Sector 9B, and even Glacier's Silent Hollow, where watches had stopped at that identical time. Today, the Lasal site is closed to the public. No memorial marks the clearing. Rangers visit twice a year to measure soil temperature, check barometric readings, and photograph the vegetation line. Each year, nothing changes. No new growth overtakes the tent's outlines. No erosion disturbs the fire ring. In a landscape shaped by wind and thaw, the campsite remains fixed, unmoved, unaged. Rangers describe an eerie quiet there, a soundless pressure like the air before lightning. It feels like something's still waiting for them to return, one wrote in 2021. The place hasn't decided they're gone. The official summary remains one paragraph long. All persons missing, equipment intact, environmental and temporal inconsistencies unresolved. No further action recommended. Off record, a different sentence circulates in late-night conversations between search officers. The mountain remembered what it looked like before they vanished and put it back. The path that hummed at dusk. In the northern reaches of Glacier National Park, near the spine of the Lewis Range, there is a trail that the rangers rarely speak of by name. On maps, it appears as an unremarkable maintenance route, an access path for seasonal crews who repair snow barriers and monitor runoff from Logan Pass. But in ranger logs dating back almost 50 years, it is marked with the same handwritten note: audible vibration near dusk, source undetermined. Locally, it's called the path that hummed. The first known report comes from 1973, when a maintenance foreman named Alan Riggs radioed the West Glacier station to report a tone following his patrol down the ridge. He described it as a single, low hum, like an engine far underground. The sound grew louder as he descended, then faded when he stopped walking. His partner, standing only 20 yards away, heard nothing. Riggs returned to base, shaken but insistent that the mountain was making noise that followed me step for step. His statement was filed under routine geological activity. The following summer, a different crew heard the same vibration, this time as a faint harmonic that swelled at sunset. One of them recorded it on reel tape, a droning note, steady, between 38 and 40 hertz below human vocal range, more felt than heard. When played back later, the hum continued for several seconds after the recorder was switched off. By the early 1980 seconds, rangers began conducting informal tests. They placed pressure sensors along the ridge to measure microseismic movement. Every evening, between 7:58 and 8:05 p.m., the ground emitted subtle tremors, consistent in timing, but too weak to register as earthquakes. The earth breathes differently there, one geologist wrote, like something exhaling heat. In 1989, seismologist Dr. Harold Kim visited to study the anomaly. He described the sound as a perfect harmonic drone, one that rose by fractions of a hertz with each passing minute, as if adjusting to something unseen. Kim's instruments picked up patterns suggesting interference from beneath the ridge, repeating oscillations separated by precise intervals of 2 minutes and 3 seconds. The report's final sentence reads simply, "Rhythm implies intention." Through the 1,990 seconds, hikers began to file casual accounts. The trail, humming, boots vibrating faintly, cameras shaking in rhythm with the sound. In one instance, a child told his parents the path was singing to his feet. Rangers dismissed the claims until 1998, when the hum was captured simultaneously by 3 devices: an audio recorder, a barometer, and a thermal imager. The data showed synchronized pulses rising from the ground, each lasting 7 seconds. The air temperature above the trail dropped by 2 degrees during every pulse. In 2006, a crew installing new weather sensors reported a stronger vibration. They described it as musical, layered multiple tones blending, forming chords. One technician said, "It sounded tuned." Another added, "Like the mountain was listening to us and adjusting pitch." The phenomenon remained benign until June 2012, when a pair of night hikers disappeared along the ridge. Their flashlights were later found standing upright in the dirt, batteries still charged, beams pointing toward the valley. Audio from a GoPro recovered near the site captured 31 minutes of steady humming before the feed cut out. The pitch rose gradually throughout, ending in complete silence. No bodies were recovered. Following that incident, the Park Service restricted public access to the trail, citing unstable rock conditions. Yet maintenance continued, and more data followed. Instruments buried under the soil recorded infrasonic vibrations, tones too low for the human ear, spiking precisely at dusk. The frequencies shifted slightly each evening, rising or falling depending on the number of people nearby. Rangers now travel in pairs, noting that the hum seems to respond to presence. In 2015, technician Laura Chen conducted overnight acoustic mapping. She placed contact microphones along a quarter-mile stretch of trail, synchronized to records simultaneously. The results were unsettling. The tones formed a repeating sequence that, when plotted, resembled human speech cadence. When filtered through an analyzer, the pattern translated into intervals matching Morse timing. The sequence repeated 3 times per night, identical on every recording. Translated literally, it spelled HEAR. Subsequent tests failed to reproduce the pattern, though the baseline hum persisted. Chen left the service soon after, noting in her exit report, "The sound is not natural resonance. It behaves like awareness." Geologists from Montana State University have since proposed various explanations: glacial movement, water flow through subterranean cavities, temperature contraction of rock, but none account for the sound's regularity or the way it ceases instantly when recording stops. "It knows when it's being heard," one ranger said. "That's when it stops." In 2019, researchers placed geophones across the ridge to capture subsurface resonance. For 3 consecutive nights, the sensors recorded frequencies between 37.8 and 40.1 Hz, consistent with earlier data. But on the 4th night, every instrument failed simultaneously at 8 p.m. The logs show a final entry on each device. Signal returned inverted. The data, when inverted again, revealed an identical harmonic mirrored, as though the mountain had replayed the tone backward. Today, the path remains closed to the public after 5 p.m. Rangers perform monthly inspections, each lasting exactly 1 hour before sunset. The written instructions in the district manual are brief. If humming occurs, stand still. Do not respond vocally. Record duration. Exit slowly. Visitors who stray beyond the marked zone sometimes report hearing the hum faintly from a distance, a vibration more felt through the soles than heard by the ear. A few claim the sound follows them even after they return to camp, resonating in tents, backpacks, or metal cookware for hours before fading. Last summer, a drone flown over the ridge captured faint tremors in its audio feed, 3 rhythmic pulses, followed by silence. The duration was 2 minutes, 3 seconds, the same recurring timestamp that appears in reports from Yosemite, Crater Lake, and the Gila Wilderness. When asked what it might mean, one ranger paused before answering. "We used to think the parks were quiet because nothing made noise," he said. "Now we think maybe they're quiet because something's listening." Each report still ends with the same unchanging note, typed in measured language. Audible vibration detected near dusk. Duration 0 hours 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Cause unknown. No structural hazard observed. The lights above Timber Ridge. Timber Ridge lies deep within Arizona's Coconino National Forest, a steep, pine-covered spine stretching between Sedona and the Mogollon Rim. By daylight it looks ordinary. Wind-scoured sandstone, tall ponderosa pines, red dust clinging to boots. But since the early 1980 seconds, rangers have quietly recorded something that daylight cannot explain. After midnight, lights move through this forest, silent, self-contained, and bright enough to turn the trees white for seconds at a time. The first report came from the 12th of October, 1981. Ranger Stephen Alvarez was patrolling near Fossil Creek when he saw a sphere of light gliding along the ridgeline. "About the size of a cabin window," he wrote in his log. "White, no sound, compass rotating." The light hovered for 20 seconds, then dimmed as though absorbed by the air. When Alvarez radioed his position, every channel returned a hiss of static. His incident form, still filed in the Sedona District Archive, ends with the same phrase repeated twice: "Light stationary, compass malfunction." For years, the event was treated as optical illusion, the product of moonlight and dust. Then, in 1993, a Cessna pilot reported floodlights in the forest while flying from Flagstaff to Payson. The coordinates he provided were clear, but when rangers searched the next morning, the ground was undisturbed. There were no camps, no tracks, only a ring of darkened pine needles 20 meters wide, slightly warm to the touch. The trees were unburned. "It looked like something bright had sat there," said one of the searchers. Over the following decades, sightings multiplied. Campers described vertical columns of light that drifted through fog. Firefighters saw orbs moving against the wind. And rangers on night patrol reported bursts of illumination that flickered like lightning but produced no thunder. Between 2000 and 2023, at least 27 official field logs reference unexplained aerial light phenomena. In May 2007, Ranger Daniel Curtis was installing new trail markers with 2 volunteers when the soil beneath their feet began to glow. "It wasn't light from above," Curtis recalled. "It was rising from under us, silver, faint, moving with us." His GPS unit simultaneously recorded an elevation drop of 30 feet, even though the terrain was flat. When the light faded, the display returned to normal. A week later, a geology team tested the same coordinates. Their instruments detected magnetic spikes, half a milligauss above background. Not dangerous, but significant. The anomaly lasted less than a minute and repeated at nearly the same hour for 3 nights. Static without discharge, one of the technicians wrote. In 2013, a wildfire crew bivouacked on the ridge after containment work. At 2:11 a.m., 2 amber spheres appeared above the trees. The crew's radios died instantly. The spheres hovered, shifted left, and disappeared. Their thermal camera captured faint heat signatures in the air that lingered several minutes before fading. The event was filed as energy emission, unknown origin. Locals in Sedona and Flagstaff began calling them the Ridge Fires, though nothing ever burned. Tourists caught glimpses from the highways below blue-white flares moving parallel to the horizon. Pilots flying freight routes across northern Arizona reported beacons without ground source. One captain described it as a flashlight beam aimed sideways through fog, but the fog was inside the beam. By 2018, park scientists began tracking the events systematically. Patterns emerged. Nearly every sighting occurred between 2 and 2:03 a.m. The lights lasted an average of 2 minutes, preceded by a short period of radio interference and a measurable pressure drop. Instruments recorded faint electromagnetic surges, but no external cause. The National Park Service labeled them Localized Luminous Events Timber Ridge Cluster. The report concluded, phenomena non-hazardous, likely atmospheric. Rangers in the field were less certain. Several noted that the forest went silent seconds before each appearance. No insects, no wind. It's as if the ridge pauses, one wrote, then light replaces sound. In 2021, 3 rangers conducting a midnight patrol witnessed another occurrence from less than 100 yards away. It was vertical, not spherical, one testified later. A curtain of light sliding sideways between the trees. They described the air as heavy and dry, as though electricity was being pulled upward. When the light vanished, all 3 watches read 2:03 a.m. a time, echoed across every documented event for 40 years. Later, soil analysis revealed ozone residue and microscopic fused quartz particles, suggesting extreme heat for a fraction of a second. None of the trees were scorched. Drones sent to capture footage often failed. Their batteries drained instantly, or GPS loops repeated coordinates endlessly. One successful flight in 2022 lasted only 12 seconds, but showed a narrow beam hovering motionless between the pines. When brightness was increased during analysis, faint geometric patterns appeared within the beam lines, circles, and lattice shapes like circuitry. The pattern repeated frame to frame before the feed cut out. Theories multiplied. Some blamed tectonic piezoelectric discharge, quartz crystals generating voltage under stress. Others suggested plasma or earth lights, a known but rare effect of magnetic rock under strain. Yet the ridge sits on sandstone, not quartz, and the timing of the lights, always near 2 a.m., defied any random geological explanation. Locals who have seen them speak of the silence more than the brightness. "It's not loud or scary," said one camper in 2019. "It's peaceful, like the forest is waiting for something to finish happening." Rangers who've spent years there say the opposite. The peace feels staged. "It's too still," one veteran said. "Even the air holds still. The lights have never harmed anyone." Still, park guidelines now advise against camping along Timber Ridge during the early morning hours. Internal memos avoid speculation but repeat the same instruction. If forest illumination is observed, withdraw immediately. Do not pursue the light. In March 2024, 2 hikers placed a 911 call reporting pillars of light standing in the trees. Their call cut mid-sentence. Rangers found them minutes later at the ridgeline, uninjured but disoriented. Both described a brilliant flash, like daylight underwater. Their watches had stopped at 2:03 a.m., matching the timestamp from every previous event. The National Park Service released no public statement. Unofficially, rangers admit they cannot explain why these lights appear in fixed intervals or how they affect instruments. "It's not weather," one said quietly. "It's not lightning, drones, or plasma. Whatever it is, it repeats with intent." At dawn, the ridge returns to stillness. No burns, no damage, only the smell of ozone and a faint shimmer that clings to bark like frost. When sunlight breaks through the canopy, the forest looks as it always has, unchanged, ordinary, quiet. But those who have stood there say it feels different afterward, as if the place remembers being bright. The log entries have not changed in decades. Each one closes the same way, written in calm, bureaucratic language. Unexplained illumination observed. Duration 2 minutes, 54 seconds. No source detected. Area secured. And sometimes, when the night is windless and moonlight fades, the forest glows again softly, from the ground up, as though the ridge itself is breathing in light and exhaling silence. The canyon that erased the past. In the far reaches of New Mexico's Gila National Forest lies a canyon seldom marked on public maps. Officially, it's part of the Gila Wilderness, a million acres of protected land where cell service vanishes and stone walls rise in rippled folds older than recorded history. Rangers refer to this section as Survey Sector D14, but among the few archaeologists who visited, it's earned another name, the canyon that erased the past. The first formal expedition arrived there in May 2003, led by Dr. Evelyn Cross of the University of New Mexico. Her team had been cataloguing petroglyphs along the upper Gila River when they heard from a ranger about carvings exposed after a seasonal landslide. When they reached the site, they found panels of rock unlike any others in the region, smooth, newly revealed, and covered in hundreds of symbols. The carvings appeared freshly cut, their grooves pale and unweathered. Cross noted in her field log, sharp edges, no lichen, as if etched last week. At first, the designs seemed familiar: circles, spiral lines, animal figures, but several displayed modern shapes, concentric rectangles, waveforms, and patterns resembling electrical schematics. The rangers assumed vandalism until carbon tests on a nearby fire pit returned dates around 8,400 BCE. When the stone itself was analyzed through thermoluminescence, it indicated last exposure to sunlight more than 10,000 years ago. The discovery challenged both archaeology and geology. The glyphs were ancient, but the cuts looked new. Even stranger, photographs taken days apart showed subtle differences in the carvings. Small lines appeared or vanished between visits. At first, Cross suspected shadows or angle distortion. Then one of her graduate students compared high-resolution frames and found that an entire figure, a spiral enclosing a small humanoid shape, had rotated 90 degrees between shots. The rock face was unmoved. The carving had changed. Ranger logs from that summer described growing unease among the team. Equipment failed in the canyon. Compasses spun slowly. Digital recorders captured low, rhythmic vibrations, steady as a heartbeat, too regular for wind or machinery. A biologist who joined the survey noted that insects avoided the site entirely, though nearby valleys swarmed with them. "The canyon feels quiet in a way sound doesn't fix," she wrote. By July, Cross's team documented more alterations. A row of 5 carved symbols, initially aligned horizontally, had shifted upward. Another cluster, photographed near the entrance, vanished altogether. The sandstone showed no chisel marks, no dust, no sign of tampering. The carvings simply reformed. When Cross sent updates to her department, she received instructions to secure the site until further study could be arranged. The following week, a monsoon storm hit the area. Flash floods sealed the canyon roads for 3 days. When rangers finally returned, they found the camp abandoned. Tents were flattened but intact, notebooks dry under tarps. Every camera, however, was blank. Memory cards showed metadata for hundreds of photos, but all files read as 0 kilobytes. The missing team reappeared 36 hours later, hiking out on their own along the Gila River, dehydrated but unharmed. They had no memory of the intervening days. "We thought we'd only slept one night," Cross later told investigators. "But our watches said 3 had passed. They carried their gear but not their field logs." When asked about the carvings, Cross hesitated before answering. They weren't finished. Since that summer, the canyon has remained under restricted access. Only rangers and occasional surveyors enter, and never alone. Yet new anomalies persist. In 2009, a maintenance crew repairing erosion markers found fresh carvings identical to the old designs appearing farther upstream on untouched walls. Thermal imaging revealed that the new glyphs emitted slightly higher surface heat than surrounding stone, as if recently etched. Satellite photos show no signs of landslides or human intrusion. The formations continue to multiply at irregular intervals. Each time they're photographed, small geometric variations appear. Some figures seem to mirror modern symbols, grid patterns, stylized circuitry, repeating arcs that resemble radio waves. A physicist from Los Alamos, reviewing the images, remarked that the spacing between certain carvings matched microwave resonance frequencies. Rangers stationed nearby have grown used to strange reports. At night, faint lights are seen flickering along the canyon walls, pale blue glows that move like water reflections, though no streams run nearby. Audio sensors left to monitor animal migration record short bursts of infrasound at fixed 2-minute intervals. These pulses align precisely with the times the lights appear. In 2014, a new ranger named Adrian Holt volunteered to spend a night near the site to calibrate cameras after multiple power failures. His audio diary from that night, still archived in the Gila District Office, records 12 minutes of steady, ambient sound, followed by silence, then a whispering vibration like distant thunder. At 2:06 a.m., he says quietly, "Something's moving on the wall." The recording ends there. Holt returned to base before dawn, shaken but unharmed. He later wrote only, "The carvings were shining." When daylight came, the symbols nearest his camp had altered again. One panel, previously blank, now contained 5 vertical lines. When connected by computer overlay, the pattern matched a frequency graph of Holt's final recording, an identical waveform. Geologists brought in to study the site described the rock as unusually conductive, rich in magnetite and feldspar, minerals capable of storing small electric charges. It's possible, one scientist speculated, that these stones record energy like magnetic tape, yet none could explain how ancient carvings could change shape, nor why modern patterns appeared in prehistoric stone. Attempts to map the canyon precisely have failed. GPS coordinates fluctuate, signal drift can reach half a mile. Even aerial LiDAR scans produce blurred, double-layered images, as though the terrain overlaps itself. Researchers now believe the site sits within a localized magnetic anomaly similar to those in the Sierra Nevada and parts of Alaska zones, where compass bearings and time readings lose synchronization. In 2019, a short-lived independent project attempted to document every visible carving. Within a month, half of their reference markers vanished, replaced by smooth stone. The team leader described the experience as watching history unwrite itself. Today, Survey Sector D14 is closed to the public. Rangers patrol its perimeter twice a year, logging weather, vegetation, and rock stability. No one is assigned to stay overnight. The last official entry, dated October 2023, includes a single line from a field technician who had never read the earlier reports. It reads, "Symbols appear brighter than last survey. Surface feels warm to touch. One spiral moved closer to trailhead. The canyon remains quiet, unremarkable from a distance, its walls pale under morning sunday, yet under infrared, faint residual patterns glow where no carvings exist to the eye." Each year, new symbols form, some simple, others intricate, marking a record no one has written and no one can erase. Rangers refer to it cautiously now, using its coded designation, but when they talk off-duty, their phrasing is simpler. They say the canyon is remembering itself, pulling its own story forward from the stone, reshaping it each time someone comes to look. The journal that stopped at midnight. Crater Lake National Park, Oregon, its waters so blue and deep that light itself seems to slow as it enters. For over a century, rangers here have said that the lake holds time differently, as if reflections linger longer than they should. The air feels still, clocks lose seconds, and radio signals fade at the rim only to reappear hours later. Among these quiet distortions, one story stands apart: the disappearance of naturalist Henry Bell and the journal he left behind that refused to stay written. Bell had arrived in June 1997 as part of a seasonal research team cataloguing nocturnal animal behavior around Wizard Island. By all accounts, he was meticulous, known for taking hourly notes, sketching tracks, and logging minute temperature changes. His work was so detailed that rangers often joked his notebooks could predict the weather. On the evening of July 14, Bell set up a solo observation camp near the old Rim Trail Lookout, roughly 3 miles north of the visitor center. His last radio check came at 8:06 p.m. Visibility clear, barometer steady. Will begin night log shortly. When he failed to check in the next morning, a ranger hikeout team followed his trail and found his camp undisturbed. The tent was zipped shut, sleeping bag rolled, stove cold. But on the small fold-out table beside his cot lay a leather-bound journal open, ink still fresh on the page, though it had rained that morning. The final entry read simply, 0, movement on the water, not reflection, surface divided, listening. The ink shimmered wet in the midday sun, as if just written. Bell himself was gone. There were no footprints beyond the tent, no sign of struggle, and no disturbance of the gravel rim. Search teams scoured the crater's edge for 6 days. Nothing surfaced. The journal was sealed in a plastic evidence bag and logged at park headquarters. When rangers attempted to photocopy or scan the final pages, the images came out blank white, perfectly uniform. Attempts to photograph them produced the same result. The ink, though visible to the naked eye, refused to appear on film or digital capture. Over the next few weeks, rangers noted something else. Each time the journal was handled, the last line seemed to fade slightly, then reappear overnight, as if rewritten by an unseen hand. The ink changes depth, one technician wrote. Sometimes letters are thicker, sometimes missing. Under ultraviolet light, the text glowed faintly, pulsing every few seconds like a heartbeat. By late August, the object had been moved to a controlled archive in Portland for further analysis. There, researchers from Oregon State University subjected the ink to spectrographic testing. It matched no known compound metallic in composition, but with trace phosphorescence usually found in marine organisms. When exposed to humidity, the writing brightened. When cooled below freezing, it vanished entirely. One lab assistant reported that during analysis, the faint smell of ozone filled the room. Moments later, the computer tracking the test logged a false timestamp, 0, July 14, the same midnight as Bell's final entry. Rangers reviewing Bell's earlier notebooks found nothing unusual until the final week before his disappearance. Starting July 9, his tone changed. The entries became shorter, more fragmented, filled with references to the lake echoing its own light. On July 12, he wrote, sounds coming from below surface, not waves, something measuring depth by tone. The next day, saw reflection when no light present. Could be pressure system. His last complete entry before the midnight line reads, instrument readings looping, needle reversed direction, sky feels lower. In 2004, the journal resurfaced in an internal park storage review. The ink was still intact, the final line still fresh. Rangers tested again, scanning, photographing, digital copying, and again the pages appeared blank. Only those viewing the book directly could see the writing. One ranger noted that when he read the final line aloud, the lake below darkened for a moment despite full sun, as if a shadow had passed beneath the surface. That same year, another anomaly occurred at 12:03 a.m. on July 14, exactly 7 years to the minute after Bell's disappearance. Crater Lake's monitoring buoys recorded a sudden, synchronized pressure drop of 2 millibars. Every instrument on the rim logged it. Rangers described the sound of a low hum rising from the caldera, fading after 60 seconds. No visible disturbance followed. The event repeated again in 2011 and 2018. Each time, the timestamp on the log read 0, with the system clock resetting itself afterward. By 2020, Bell's journal had become an internal curiosity among rangers. It was kept in a sealed glass case, humidity controlled, in a storage room labelled Archival Artifact, Origin Unknown. Yet staff still noticed changes. Occasionally, the book's leather would be cold to the touch, or the ink would shift shade black to deep blue before fading back. A note taped to the display case now reads, do not open between 23:30 and 0:30. Theories vary. Some researchers suspect piezoelectric interference from mineral deposits at the crater rim, creating electromagnetic fields that alter recording devices. Others point to an even simpler explanation. Bell may have fallen into the lake, and moisture from his notes caused a rare bioluminescent chemical reaction. But none of that explains why the ink remains unfaded after 25 years, or why the words can never be reproduced outside the original paper. Modern rangers who've guarded the archive describe strange sensations while nearby watch ticks slowing, phones losing battery, and an unshakable feeling of being watched. One ranger reported faint whispering sounds, as if the pages were turning themselves. When checked, the book lay open to the same line, 0, movement on the water. Each July, without official acknowledgement, Crater Lake staff quietly restricts access to the rim between midnight and 1 a.m. The closures are explained as meteorological monitoring. Locals know better. The night the journal stops reading clearly, the lake sometimes glows barely perceptible, like moonlight under glass. Those who've seen it describe two bands of light moving in opposite directions, intersecting briefly before vanishing. To this day, Henry Bell's body has never been found. The journal remains sealed in its glass case, its ink perpetually fresh, its words visible only to the naked eye. Attempts to digitize or translate it still fail. Every test, every photograph, every scan produces the same result, blankness, as if the writing refuses to exist beyond the moment of observation. At the end of each year, the Park Service adds a new note to the artifact's record. The most recent one, dated 2024, reads, "Ink status unchanged, entry visible, time of inspection 0, inspector's name unreadable." Visitors sometimes ask why the park keeps it at all if no one can explain it. Rangers answer carefully. "It's part of the history," one said. "We can't throw it away. It hasn't finished being written." The forest that reflected sound. In the northwestern corner of Washington, within the vast wilderness of Olympic National Park, lies a stretch of forest known among rangers as the Hoh Mirror Zone. It isn't marked on any visitor map. The name exists only in maintenance logs and field notes, an internal shorthand for an area where sound behaves in ways that no one has fully explained. The forest itself is ordinary enough by daylight. It lies near the upper Hoh River Valley, where moss drapes from every branch and fog lingers even at noon. The air there is thick, damp, and heavy, with silence, the kind of silence that feels alive. But once dusk settles, the quiet takes on a strange quality. Whispers travel too far, footsteps echo sideways, and sometimes the forest speaks back. The first official record dates to August 1989, filed by 2 rangers conducting a boundary inspection. Their report notes, unusual echo response when calling across clearing. Repeated phrase "test check" returned 3 seconds later in identical voice tone. Believed mechanical interference from radio. But radios had been off at the time. When replaying their audio log later, the echo could still be heard, 3 seconds delayed, but layered with faint words neither ranger remembered saying. Over the following decade, the phenomenon persisted. Hikers reported hearing their own conversations repeated from behind them, sometimes distorted, sometimes clearer than the originals. In 1997, a volunteer trail team performing a routine cleanup near the Hoh River recorded what they believed were deer calls. Upon playback, the sounds formed structured syllables, a faint mimicry of their own chatter. The file, still archived under Acoustic Incident 97B, includes the distinct phrase "leave trail," spoken in a voice that matches one of the volunteers, though she never said it. By the early 2000s, park acousticians began investigating. They deployed portable sound reflectometers devices used to measure echo strength and decay. The readings defied expectation. In certain sections of the valley, echoes lasted up to 4 seconds, impossible in dense vegetation. Worse, the reflections didn't follow physical direction. Shouts aimed north returned from the east. Claps aimed upward bounced downward as if from hollow ground. During a 2005 study, technician Elias Mendez described hearing something breathe between the trees. He wrote in his log, "Our voices aren't bouncing, they're being answered. Each echo carries new data as if the forest is adjusting to us." After 2009, rangers began to avoid the area at night. Radio contact often broke down entirely, replaced by bursts of static that mirrored fragments of spoken words. In one incident, a lost hiker was located by his own distress calls, except rangers later determined the recording had been made 30 minutes after he'd already been rescued. To test the effect systematically, the park's sound analysis team set up 24-hour recorders across a 2-mile perimeter in 2013. For the first 8 hours, they captured nothing but wind. Then, between 2:02 and 2:06 a.m., all units simultaneously recorded faint voices. Each microphone picked up the same pattern, 2 spoken phrases, repeated 3 times in different tones. When slowed to half speed, the words became clear. Are you hearing it now? The equipment logs revealed no interference. Battery life was normal, no frequencies matched nearby broadcasts, and all devices were analog, incapable of digital overlap. One technician who reviewed the audio alone late at night later admitted he heard his own name whispered between the loops. I deleted the file after, he said. It didn't feel recorded, it felt aware. Field tests using laser rangefinders and sonar later showed that the echoes originated not from surfaces, but from the air itself, as though sound waves were bending mid-travel and returning altered. One report described it as reflection without boundary. In 2017, a new ranger named Andrea Park was assigned to conduct safety patrols near the mirror zone. On her 3rd night, she carried a handheld recorder to document unusual calls. Her audio diary survives in the park archive. The first 2 hours are uneventful. Wind, dripping water, occasional owl hoots. Then, at exactly 01, her voice calls out, "Ranger Park, test record." 3 seconds later, the same phrase repeats, same pitch, same inflection. She laughs nervously and adds, "Okay, good one." Then the echo returns again, this time slightly altered. "Okay, good one." The delay shortens. Soon, every sound her breaths, her movements reverberates twice. The file ends with Park whispering, "Stop." The word is echoed once, then twice, and finally, in perfect unison with her own. She left the valley the next morning, unhurt but visibly shaken. In her written statement, she said, "It wasn't copying me, it was finishing my sentences." Later that year, the park sealed access to the section of trail between marker posts 12 and 14 for environmental restoration. Internally, it's known as a restricted acoustic site. Only 2 research visits have been authorized since. Both documented the same phenomenon, delayed audio playback that continues even after recording stops. One file runs for 9 minutes of silence, followed by 30 seconds of conversation between 2 rangers, though their logbooks show they had already left the area. Geologists, asked to explain it, point to the valley's unique shape. The basalt cliffs, heavy moss, and constant humidity could create complex echo layers. Yet even they admit no known conditions can reflect sound longer than the source itself. Some physicists speculate that temperature inversions create an acoustic duct, trapping audio waves and carrying them for miles before releasing them back. But this fails to explain why the echoes change words. Rangers stationed nearby speak carefully when asked. Some claim the forest is talking to itself, repeating sounds to test how they change. Others describe it as a memory of noise, an environment that replays what it hears long after the people are gone. One retired supervisor summarized it more simply: "We've got an echo that remembers." Today, the home mirror zone remains officially closed after sunset. No signs explain why. Visitors sometimes report faint voices when fog thickens across the trail, a sound that follows them for minutes and then stops all at once. The last recorded ranger entry, filed April 2024, reads, "Entered restricted section at 14:10, ambient quiet, whisper echo at 14:17, responded with, 'Can you hear me?' Heard reply from northeast, 'Can you hear me?' Phrase repeated 3 times. Distance unknown, no other personnel in area. The investigation remains open. All recordings are stored under locked archive, each labeled with identical durations 2 minutes, 3 seconds, matching the timestamp that has appeared in every anomalous case, from Yosemite to Crater Lake. When asked what she thought the forest was reflecting, Ranger Park, now retired, answered quietly, "Not sound, just attention." What began as isolated incidents, missing hikers, strange sounds, places that behave as if they are aware, has become a pattern that no one can quite explain. Rangers speak carefully now, their words measured, their reports incomplete. They say the wilderness is changing, or maybe we are just beginning to notice how alive it has always been. Somewhere between silence and sound, between light and memory, something continues to move. If you've ever stood alone in a forest and felt watched, or heard your own voice echo back from where no one stood, you already understand what they're trying to describe. These are not stories of fear, they're reminders that the wild is still larger than us. If you want to keep exploring these forgotten reports and hidden corners of the world, subscribe, stay curious, and join us next time as we go deeper into the unknown.